hate the introduction. I just don't. Good evening, everyone. This is Mike Wilson with Andesite Blue. I welcome you this evening to our program. We're also brought to you by Toloka Studios. They've been a fantastic producer and a studio for us to run our program and to get our message out to everyone that views us. Anyway, tonight we have a special guest I look forward to introducing to you. His name is Eric Champagne. And we're going to be talking about success. We're going to be talking about the behind the scenes of success. We see, Zuckerberg, we see Jobs, we see Gates, we see Musk, we see so many people, Trump and all these people that are very, very wealthy into the billionaire stage, and but we don't know really the work behind it. Sure, they've made a movie of some of these people, but still, even the movies sometimes sugarcoat the real heartaches, the struggles, and the things that it takes to really get to where they are today. And so we see the end result, which is the glamour. So we're going to break that down for you tonight and discuss, it's on a real personal level of how it is, how the work we've gone through, the failures that we've gone through, and the successes that we've experienced. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to Eric Champagne. Eric, welcome to the show.
Pleased to be here.
Yeah, and I'm really happy to have run into you, about a month ago?
Close to that.
We've seen each other for a little bit longer, but we finally, met up and started talking and had the time to do that. But I've been very blessed and very pleased to have met you and to pick your brain.
Kudos.
So, and also a native speaker. We don't have to think about what we're going to say, right?
For sure, absolutely.
So that makes sense. Hey, give me a little bit of your background. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you've done, and why you're here in Ukraine.
All right. So basically, where I'm from Canada. I've been in Ukraine now for about 2 years.
Okay.
Been here before on several trips, but in the last trip, it's been 2 years. I am in a relationship with a woman from Ukraine, so obviously that's why I decided to stay here.
Okay, so that was your motivation for staying.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what else are you doing now? Since you've been here now with the COVID and the war, what things have you?
Well, I'm lucky enough to have businesses that allow me to be able to work remotely. So I don't actually have to be in Canada to work on the businesses that I have there. Okay. So luckily enough, as long as I have a laptop and a phone, I can work.
And as long as the Canadian authorities don't find you, you're good, right?
There you go.
So, okay, all right. Are you doing anything in Ukraine at all during this time, as far as not your work?
Aside from volunteering here and there, no.
So, but you do volunteering work?
Yes, absolutely.
And stuff like that. Okay. On the humanitarian level, on what?
Yeah, exactly. So helping out with the army. Mainly, most recently, it's mostly about food and supplies to the front lines.
Okay.
So,
okay. Well, this is extremely important.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think they all need it, and it's a trying time for everybody here.
Absolutely. Yes. And one thing about we'll be getting into about the success is it's not really an individual thing. The individuality does have some occasions where one person single-handedly became successful, but
I don't believe that, to be honest.
Exactly. Now, Michael Jordan, he certainly didn't have people helping him. He did, they trained him, yes, but he was an individual that excelled into greatness as an athlete. Now, the interesting thing about it is that once he retired and the athleticism was over, we don't hear about him anymore. True. And there's reasons behind that, but that's an individuality, So we do have some individualities that create their pinnacles, and then all of a sudden just kind of fade away into the sunset. So what I want to get to, though, is about it takes an army to succeed. So it takes an army of people really to come together to make things work. And so you were a piece of helping bringing food and supplies to the front line, which is necessary. But it takes a group of us to do that. It takes an effort of many people to do that. So there's an army behind the line that is fortifying and supporting and supplying to the army that is fighting on the line. So those are absolutely critical steps in success.
Definitely. I would say to that, though, that going back to the Jordan comment, I don't know if you ever read the book from Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist.
I've heard it. I have not read it.
Yeah. He basically, it's not like clearly stated per se, but if you read between the lines, he names 4 obstacles to achieving your purpose or your goal, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The first one is that we're often told as children,
you can't
forget your dream, it's not going to happen, you're not going to be an astronaut, you're not going to be a model, you're going to work at Mickey D's, right?
Right, yeah.
You're going to work as a cashier at that grocery store kind of thing. But if you get past that first obstacle, the second obstacle that's stated in the book is love, but the bad kind of love, the kind of love that wants to hold you back, wants to say, oh, if you pursue your dream, you may forget me, or you may not spend time with me, or whatever. So, in my opinion, true love actually encourages you to pursue that dream.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pass the first 2 obstacles, the third one, which is pretty common to most people, is fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the broadcast today. But again, if you get past that fear of failure, what the last fear or the last obstacle to success is fear of success itself.
Yes.
Which may sound strange to some, but what if you achieve to max the pinnacle of your industry or your sport or anything that you do? What then? Like if you're an Olympic athlete and you get the gold medal, then what?
What happens?
You can't go any further than that, right?
Correct. Yeah, and you know, fear is the number one obstacle in our lives in anything, relationships, business, even education. There's just a number of things that really hold us back. Jumping out of an airplane, you know.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. Yeah.
You know, it is really the obstacle. I've learned in my life to take it a step further, to go beyond the fear. I'm not afraid to go all in. Now, what helped me in that, to understand that principle, was I play Texas Hold'em, and I play on the circuit. I play in the WSOP. I play in the Heartland Tour. I have not played in the WPT. I have not played in that one yet. I want to, though.
That's something I didn't know about, you see?
And so I played many years. I've seen a million hands. You know, I've had to evaluate numbers and stuff like that. But I also had to evaluate my own emotion when it's your money.
For sure.
You know, it's different when you're playing with toy chips. But when you're playing with real chips that has an actual dollar value to it that's tied to your wallet, all of a sudden there's a string attached to that chip.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things to overcome on that. So I had to go through studies. I read books. You know, and then I had to implement the things that they were teaching me. You know, it's one thing to read it and have a knowledge of it. It's another thing to actually work it. You know, and going all in is a risk.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point right there. Like, I think it's Mark Twain that said it best. Don't let your schooling ruin your education.
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect. That's perfect. You know, and so you do learn through the School of Hard Knocks.
Absolutely.
And it's some things you try that just keep beating you up, and then you realize that, okay, I don't like that feeling. I need to go a different route. This one is not working. It's a wall that's really impenetrable. And I'm not talking about certain obstacles in our abilities to overcome that. It's just literally an obstacle that will not move. And we have to be more creative in that to be able to work around that to be successful to get to our goal.
I think also, like, you can't focus on the things you don't control. There's elements out there that are fixed, or they may be variable, but you don't control them. So you have to focus on what's under your control, how to maneuver within those parameters.
Correct. Yep.
Right?
Yep. So tell us a little bit. I want to hear your story on you went from working as an employee and worked your way up to a good level.
But I actually started, but prior to that, I was actually homeless for a period of my life. In which I was like showering at the school, eating the free food at the cafeteria kind of thing, like ketchup packets, the bread and stuff like that. And this was all due to a car accident which left me unable to walk for several years. And I was a carpenter, so it was hard to find a job in carpentry if you can't walk.
Especially if you're gimpy. I mean, that's really difficult.
Absolutely. So after I started thinking at what my options were, and I was thinking call centers. And so I started working at the National Bank of Canada's call center, and so I knew I could walk to work with my crutches, sit down all day, and be okay on the phone the whole time. I was lucky enough to find an employer that was actually paying my studies. So I actually had 4 diplomas at the university that were all paid by National Bank. After a while, I realized that I should be starting my own business.
Okay.
And I think we all feel at a certain point in our lives that we're in a comfort zone. And I think looking back, I would have done this much sooner. But I was comfortable.
Well, okay, give me an example. What salary did you leave at?
I left a national bank. My last year, I did $150,000 a year.
So that's annually. That's $150,000. Now, the Canadian dollar is a little bit less than the American dollar, but there was a time there that the Canadian actually passed the American dollar in 2013. And,
it was probably at that time, because we're talking about 2016. It was probably the equivalent of 125 US.
Okay, and I was thinking, 85 to 1 or close to 90 to 1.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or 0.9 to 1. So we understand it, but it could be more specific. But still, it's still 150,000.
Yeah, so it's a pretty comfortable zone, right?
Yeah, it's 135,000 American dollars.
Yeah.
135,000 American dollars a year.
Yeah.
And you decided to leave that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a decision I did overnight. And to be honest, my family thought I was completely insane. I was already making 5 times my parents' income. And they were thinking, why are you leaving all this comfort and safety?
So tell me some of the securities that were behind it too. You had solid
dental, medical, life insurance, disability insurance. 5 weeks of vacation.
5 weeks, oh my God.
I was winning the sales contest every year, so they were actually flying me to a tropical destination every year as well.
Wow,
right?
Yeah.
So, I was leaving behind a lot for little more than a promise of something better.
Right, and as something that you knew that you most likely weren't going to make the first year doing it. For
sure. But my last role at the bank as business development manager led me to understand that I wasn't in a business of money that happened to involve people, but a business of people that happened to involve money.
Okay.
So I knew that I had those particular skills to get in touch with people.
Right. Which is critical for any entrepreneur.
Of course.
And success, because you got your network and you've got the ability to be able to communicate and sell your product. And when I say product, it's not necessarily shoes. It could be a service. It could be really a product in the sense of commerce. Can be absolutely anything that requires revenue, exchange of money. So, but a lot of people who are actually going to be listening to this are not going to really even understand that. When I say it's 150,000 Canadian dollar. That's in the euro. That's 115,000 euro,
approximately,
and 100,000, 95 to 100,000 British pound. All of those in all of those countries is still significant and very relevant money.
Yeah,
it's the average income in those in Europe and UK and are below that.
Well, just to give you, for instance, my home village where I grew up, the average income was about $30,000 a year.
Yeah, so you were over 4 times. You were 5 times that of the average income in your village.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and the emotion, the struggle to make that decision to cross over. Yes, you obviously had a bigger carrot on the other side.
True, but I would say going back to those days where I was homeless, I think gave me a lot of personal knowledge about success. I feel when I was most desperate in my life, was where I was getting success the quickest.
You were more focused.
Well, basically, when you have to eat, obviously you're willing to do whatever it takes to get there, right? So when you get in that comfort zone, that's when typically you go into what I call a danger zone as well.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because you get complacent. You start saying, oh, maybe I don't want to do that hard work, or I don't want to make those few extra phone calls today. But if you have that thirst, that desire to pursue a goal, I always remember back in my mind to say, hey, remember when you didn't have anything to eat? You were willing to make those calls.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So made them today.
So those are the motivating factors that got you, kicked you in the pants, basically.
For sure.
And got you going. And then it's something you can remember. I also was in a position where I was living under the bridges of the freeways, with my car, just me and my car, and I was using the gym to take my showers, and so I also didn't have a broom.
Sounds very familiar. Yeah.
And fortunately, it was in Southern California, so it wasn't a freezing issue.
No, not like Canada.
You were further north.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I don't know how the period of time of your homelessness.
Mostly in the summer, but I mean, it is 6 months, right? So it kind of
overlaps. Yeah. Mine was about 4 or 5 months, and then it motivates you, and so I took on 2 jobs, and one of them was door to door, and the other one was on the phone.
Yeah, I believe you were telling me selling vacuum cleaners.
Well, that was out of the military, so I wasn't homeless then, but that got me started. So I wasn't afraid to go door to door, but I took those 2 jobs. They weren't high-paying positions, but they were jobs that I knew that I could make an income, and having the 2 jobs actually gave me above average income and got me my place, and everything got me kind of settled in. But I never stopped dreaming. I don't settle. I don't do things easy, unfortunately. Even building my house, or building homes, when my sons and I were working, we always chose the more elaborate, beautiful way, which always took more work. It was not the straight cut forward. You don't cut a 2x4 this way and just, hang it. We had angles. We had 30 seconds, and and working with very, very fine degrees and stuff. Because it gave more appeal and more cosmetic look to it, and so. So there was just that architectural factor that goes into, but it's a lot more work. It takes longer to finish and complete. And so, and I'm thinking, I'm cursing myself as I'm doing it. I go, why did I make that decision? Look how freaking hard this is, But then when it's done, then you got that feeling of, you know what, I'm glad I made that decision.
Well, I think we spoke about it earlier when we were talking at the cafe. The best things in life are on the other side of fear. And when I look back at what I was afraid of, I think to myself, why were you afraid of that? Hindsight is 20/20 days.
Correct.
And that's exactly how I felt. I felt like, why did I not do this before? Right? And it's don't get me wrong, it's a seesaw in the sense that I don't believe that any stage in life that you can be on, it's the end goal, that you should stay there. And at every stage, you are struggling. It's not as if, suddenly I can just lay back on the beach and basically just play volleyball all day.
Right.
No, of course not. You still have to push, because if you don't move forward, everybody else is. So eventually they get ahead of you.
Correct. And not just get ahead of you, but actually you end up falling back. You don't end up staying where you're at. You end up actually falling back. The average mortality after retirement is 6 months in the United States.
Wow. I didn't know that stat.
Most people, and also Canada, actually North America. What happens is that the average person is just a laborer or a worker. They work for their paycheck. And
they live to work, basically.
Yeah, and they lived and they work to eat and they work to provide and they're comfortable. I mean, they had their family, they had their house, their children. Now they got their grandchildren, and blah blah blah. But what happened? And then they dreamed about their retirement, but they didn't really prepare for the retirement. They just expected, well, I'm going to get a pension. I'm going to get the. And then all of a sudden that happened, and the pension wasn't where they thought it was supposed to be.
Mike. What you just described is probably my biggest fear. Basically, to what we call in French, boulot, métro, dodo, which basically is work, metro, sleep. And just to have that routine, to know that my existence would be for 40, 50, 60 years doing the same thing over and over until I reach retirement, that thought was so depressing to me.
And the reality of it, because we actually looked into the reality of that, is that so that thought, and I also had a gentleman here, Mark Hong, who worked for us in Andesite Blue. He's a dentist. He's a very successful dentist, and he laid down his practice and traveled. And so we actually have a spot for him in Andesite Blue that needed his skill sets and his abilities and his experiences, and he was happy to do that. But he said that same thing. I'm afraid to retire because I won't have. And so he was striving to make, and he was burning himself out. That's what happened. Is he was making $200,000-$300,000 a year, and it was eating him up. He had no life, zero life. Yeah. It was also affecting his health. So his emotional health and his physical health. He actually had to quit because of the physical reasons. And so he strive of the fear of that, but didn't understand how to really overcome and accomplish.
I can relate to that for sure, because I'm fairly certain that I'm diabetic today because of my work I had at the bank.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't do this every day, mind you, but some days I would come in at 8 a.m. And finish at 5 p.m. the next day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So all the way through midnight, through the whole...
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. And so, but that's also why I was successful in my role, not because I was smarter or...
You're just a workaholic, you were just driven.
I was basically just working twice as much or 3 times as much as the next guy, right?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, it's obviously we've touched on many directions, many facets and many things that motivate us to do things, the fear of this, the fear of that. But there's experiences that we get, like you were homeless, I've been homeless. Those experiences also, another thing is, well, I've been there before, I'm not afraid of it. So it allows me to make decisions that have higher risks.
I wouldn't say just decisions, but it also tells me that I can take risks. In the sense that, when you had nothing and you say, hey, I made it when the odds were against me, why not now? And don't get me wrong, I do calculated decisions. Yeah,
exactly.
But even more so, since they're calculated, I'm like, hey, if I can make it through that, I can definitely make it through this, right? And you may not get there in the first try, but if you keep trying and correcting, don't get me wrong, like you don't want to do like the Russians in Bakhmut, where you're trying constantly the same thing and hoping for a different result.
Right.
That's the definition of insanity according to Einstein. But if you try and then you auto-criticize yourself and say, yeah, this I can do different. Don't be that guy that says, oh, it's the environment, it's other people's fault that I didn't succeed. No. Like, what can you change that can bring you one step closer? It may not be tomorrow, right? But if it brings you one step closer to the goal, eventually you're on the top of the mountain.
Exactly. And each person has their own entrepreneurial direction, the way that they've created in themselves. They could have followed, they could have had a mentor, and they could have followed his steps, into their direction. But there's just so many facets of way of doing business independently, and that way. I have a few businesses, not as many as you do, and one of them I started last year, so it's non-revenue. Another one I started 2 years ago. It's non-revenue because of the war, which I have no control of. But we didn't stop working. We're still, even though it's not revenue, I'm still preparing and still working. This program is Andesite Blue. It's my company that I use to talk about investments, talk about instruments, investment tools, and the purposes of where that investment's going, how to secure, blah, blah, blah. So it's an educational part as well to help people understand. So I continue to lay the groundwork, even though I'm not receiving any income from it. But I won't stop because I have a vision, and I know where it's going, and I know where Ukraine's going. And Ukraine is a beautiful country, and it is literally now the center of the world. And when the war is over...
That is so true.
When the war is over, it's going to be in an amazing, amazing environment of success, and even Ukrainians getting better jobs, and us getting prepared to go into the EU and the one market program and everything, the single market program. I mean, it's just so much is poised for Ukraine.
Yeah. War is definitely not good. If there's only one good thing out of it, is putting Ukraine on the map. I mean, before what the war happened, most people in Canada that I spoke to could not even point on the map where Ukraine was, surprisingly, since it's the biggest country in Europe, which is entirely in Europe. But when I went back for a few weeks, in May, I think it was, everybody knew where it was. And I could actually see even the Ukrainian flag everywhere. So I was wow, this is an amazing side effect, if you will, of it. And I was quite pleased by
even
that.
the people of China support Ukraine. The people, it says not not necessarily the government, but
no,
the
I understand
people,
what you mean.
And the people are waving the flags, and the people are they have that hope. Ukraine win, Ukraine win, Ukraine win. Because they're under oppression.
But in all fairness, I don't talk about Ukraine anymore as this separate country. You're like, for me, this is home.
Correct.
This is
correct.
This is where I live now.
Yeah, that's your home now. It's been my home now, for many years, and so that's what's exciting about it. It's exciting at the time, the timing and everything. Getting to this place, the point is it's not easy. It's we wanted to talk about the behind the scenes, and the work. It's easy to get up and make a pitch, make a presentation of success, and this is what I did to succeed. But we leave out the emotion that took to get there. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of
That's an understatement.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times you don't sleep, or you wake up and can't go back to sleep, because the moment you wake up, you're already a thought. What needs to be done, or I got issues to deal with. Why is it? It's just nonstop. When you've reached success, and I'm not talking about that's the pinnacle. Reaching success is a level of independence, financial independence in the company. The company kind of runs itself, and now you can take the next levels and make it grow, and you can do more with it. But the point of success is that it's nearly autonomous, to where the company really runs on its own.
Yeah. Well, I define success as basically reaching a goal. So whatever that goal is in life, in business, or in education, is reaching that goal. Now, once you reach it, you can continue to progress to the next level goal, kind of thing. But you are very right, Mike, when you say that we often see success stories after the fact, when they actually reach success. So we see them as glorified, almost like godlike creatures that seem to be separate from the rest of the population. And I hear it often in people's vocabulary. They say, "Oh yeah, he was lucky," or "This was like a one-off," or something to that extent.
He hit the lottery.
Exactly.
No.
But the truth is that we celebrate these people in public for what they've been doing in private for years, if not decades in some cases.
Correct. Well, and we talked about Morgan Freeman.
Exactly.
He's a superstar. He's one of my favorite actors. Love his voice, love his abilities, love the way he presents and the way he sells the role. He's just absolutely phenomenal.
And
actor.
I told you, he got his first big role at the age of 52.
Yeah.
So can you imagine? I remember one interview actually that he did, and he was asked what motivated you, or what did you do in the interim? And he says, listen, if you want to act, act. But of course you have to pay the bills. So you may work at the pizza place or the grocery store. But on nights and weekends you're doing community theater or anything that will make you enhance those skill sets that will bring you closer to your end goal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think where people fail is they just quit, which is the only certainty of failure that you have.
Correct.
Is when you quit.
Yeah, absolute. That's guaranteed failure, is when you quit. And I can't remember who said this. You might know this. It says, "I don't believe in luck. I create my luck."
Yes, I've heard that before.
And again, I'd love to know who's that. I know it was somebody. And how do I create luck? So all of my business is dependent upon me being in the public.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm at Alchemist, I'm at Boho, I'm at Pepper's Club, I'm at Jardin Miasso, where I met you. I'm at...
Basically, you're not home alone, right?
Yeah, well, no, home alone is death to me.
Yeah.
Now, there's times I need to rest. I mean, I do sleep, but I go home alone, and I get my rest. And sometimes I don't have meetings or do anything in the morning, or all the way till my first meeting in the afternoon or whatever. And so I'll spend time just relaxing. Maybe I need to clean the apartment, whatever. It's not my life though. Home alone is not my life. There's no way I can do that. I can't spend time. I can't make money. Some people can. I can't. I can't make money on the internet. Some people that's their focus. So like, no, my money is meeting you. My money is meeting Steve, who's one of our investors in Andesite Blue. My money is meeting Mike. I met Mike at Boho. I met Steve at the Drinkery. This was couch surfing. Boho was just an event through a friend. I met Mike, blah, blah, blah. I've raised hundreds of thousands of British pounds in places like that. And I create, and I also bring businesses together. So my guests that come on here, those are the ones that I met when being out. I'm a socialite. As I say, social butterfly,
Well, like I was saying before, I think if you want any success, be it in business or anything else, I remember somebody actually told me recently, and they were very proud to say, "Oh, I did this alone." I was like, I thought about it for a second,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, that's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Not because it's great that you have those skills and you managed to do it, but do you realize that if you had gotten help from other people, you would probably gotten done faster, maybe even better?
Yeah.
It's not a source of shame to ask for help. We were talking about Michael Jordan before, and I mean, sure, he's an individual athlete, but he had coaches,
mm-hmm.
right? Like
Correct.
other people teaching him to do that specific set of skills.
Yeah, to bring him up to his level.
You don't just born and, here's my skills, I have them. No.
We'll stay on that just a little bit on Michael Jordan. But to finish my thought prior to that, was the luck. Is that I create my luck when I'm out. If I sat at home, it would have to be the lottery. But if I don't ever spend a dime on the lottery ticket,
mm-hmm.
I'm not going to win.
I totally agree on that.
I'm not going to win. So I'm not going to win sitting at home. And so I create my luck. So that's to finish with basically what I say is that how do we create our luck? We create the environment for it. It doesn't mean that every day that I go out and meet somebody I'm successful with it, but that is a network. That is a piece of the puzzle. That's the army that it takes to be successful, because everyone has skill sets that I don't have. And bringing them together makes everybody an opportunity to succeed and to develop and to grow. Now, the Jordan. Prior to Dennis Rodman and the third one, so we got the three guys.
That's a long way ago.
Yeah. Well, Michael Jordan was with the Chicago Bulls, and he was a great athlete. I mean, he was one of the top basketball athletes in the nation at the time. It was at the time that Bird was at his peak and kind of getting ready for retirement, stuff like that. But it was right around those times. So he actually played against Bird, Larry Bird. But he didn't have Dennis Rodman and Pip. No, it wasn't Pippen, but anyway, the other.
It was Pippen.
Was it Pippen?
I think so.
It might have been the three. It was the three that brought the Bulls to the championship. Jordan alone couldn't do it. And he was an individual in the beginning.
As they say, there's no I in team, right?
Right, and he was an individual. And he was a proud individual. He really didn't want to associate with the team. You know, he just was focused on his individuality, and he never made a championship. It wasn't until the three that really brought it together for them to be consistently in the championship. So the Bulls became great, and he was part of that. And he is definitely one of the best basketball athletes in history.
Yeah.
But I rate him with Magic Johnson. I rate him with Shaquille O'Neal. Even Kobe Bryant. Even though I like Johnson better than Bryant. I
see that in many sports though, and even in business as well, where you can have maybe 5 good goal scorers on your team playing on the same line at hockey, but if you don't have one that will pass the puck,
correct,
you'll never score a goal, right?
Right.
So you need different skill sets to actually finish your objective, which is win the game.
To be a champion.
If you all have the same skill sets, chances are you're going to suck as a team.
Correct. Absolutely, that's absolutely correct. And you had mentioned about the person who, the single person that did it by himself with his own skill set, became successful on his own. And you said, well, he might have got there quicker. He might have even been broader successful like that. That individual who worked for himself traded dollar for dollar for himself. Now I'm talking about as a laborer, but he can only create so much.
That is also correct. In my business, my first business was mortgage brokering. And to be honest, when I started it, if you are the only person working on the business, it's not a business, it's a job.
Correct.
Because basically the business is only making money if you are actually working.
And you're having to put the extra hours in.
Absolutely.
And you're burning yourself out.
Don't get me wrong though, I have 6 businesses now and I work as hell, probably more so than I used to, but differently, right? You work harder, but you work
managers
smarter
who work
as
with
well.
you as well. I mean, I assume that you have more of a group.
They, I said before, you need to find people that have the strength where you have weaknesses.
Yes.
It's not that I can't do those things, it's just I can't do them as efficiently as they can, or as well as they can currently.
Which gives you the room to optimize what you can do really well.
Yes. So you want to be very good at firing yourself. Because when you first start a business, right, you are everything.
Yes.
You're the CEO and you're the guy that takes out the trash.
Yeah.
You're literally
the trench
everything.
digger to the CEO, yeah.
Exactly. And
as
then gradually you fire yourself in those roles. And I think it was Dr. Oz in an interview, because he's a doctor, right? Like a cardiologist. And he said that, listen, when I go and operate, I'm not the one prepping the patient. I'm not the one doing the pre-surgery interview. I don't do any of that. I come in and I do the 2 or 3 tasks that only I can do. And that's what you want to do in your business, is you want to eliminate everything that you don't have to be the one that does it. So you have time to focus on doing more of those well-paid tasks that only you can do.
Correct. And people trust you on that as well, and they realize that those skills is what brings in the revenue of the whole that everybody benefits from. And that's why everybody is dedicated to work, so that we all work together.
And also, we shouldn't forget that I can't achieve that without their help either. In the sense that
correct, exactly.
If you go back to the cardiology metaphor, I can't operate if you're not prepping the body first, right? So I still need you,
right?
But I'm maximizing my time by having other people doing these tasks that they're proficient in, so I can do more of the task that I'm proficient in.
Correct. And you know the interesting thing about this, and we tie this into investment. So Andesite Blue, we sell bonds. We sell bonds in the UK. It's not limited to UK, but I mean, our company is UK, so it's in company's house. And we have a company, Andesite UA, here in Ukraine. So Andesite Blue is the one that raises the money. So we have the instruments, the investment instruments, to go into fixed rates, so that the investor knows exactly what he's getting, what he's investing in, and what his return is going to be. And so we sell the bonds in UK, and then we invest that money in Ukraine. And so it's always always had hard asset basis, so that every bond is backed. It's actually backed. It's not floating in the air.
Yeah, it's
correct. Collateralized. Correct. Now, the thing about the instruments is that we as individuals, for example, we work, but trading dollars for hours, or time for money, doesn't really make us wealthy.
That's for sure.
Now, but how do we get wealthy is that we also do the same thing with our money as we were talking about in business, where we diversify our skills with other people to be successful in the company, to let the company grow so that we grow. Same thing with individually with our money. We let our money work for us. And using those instruments, investment instruments, it could be in real estate as you're a broker, and you set up opportunities that have growth, and so that investor knows that he's going to get an X amount of return, or at least a minimal, and sometimes more.
That's exactly one of my businesses that I have in Canada, which basically is backed by real estate, and these investors get a fixed interest amount every month in their bank account, and usually the term is like 5 years, and so they don't have to worry about like tenants or managing the buildings themselves. And if shit hits the fan, well, it's collateralized through the assets.
Correct, and that's exactly how we do that. But then, the investor knows that he needs to invest here, he needs to invest here, he needs to diversify his investments.
Of course.
Some of those portfolios are going to perform better than others, but they create a medium, and it's the medium that way you take the emotion and the feeling out of that. Okay, so this guy would perform great. He got 20-25%. This one got 4%. This one got 12%. This one got 8%. And when you balance it all out, it came out 9%.
Yeah,
which is a great return when you're looking at 100,000, 500,000, $1 million, investments, dollars worth of investment. That's mitigating your risks. It's taken away that emotion, because this one that went this way, was really kind of the one-off we talked about.
Yeah.
It's not the guarantee. It might go this way under the table, and if you put it all there, now you're emotionally strapped to that. But to let your money work for you, you take in as many opportunities as you can. So whether it's bonds, whether it's real estate, stocks, you're looking at different opportunities.
That's exactly why I opened 6 businesses in the first place. Like, I started with one, but when I started thinking, I was like, yeah, this is one income stream. What if, again, shit hits the fan, and let's say this particular industry becomes more difficult for some reason? So I wanted to have different income streams to ensure that didn't occur.
Correct. And that's exactly what we do at Andesite Blue, where we take in we sell the bond, we raise 100,000, million, whatever, on that. We sell the bond, and then that money is not into one stream. That money, we have the energy sector, we have the agriculture sector, we have the medical and dental sector. These are the areas that, developments and things where we do not do futures. It's earning money currently, so that's where we're working right now. So anyway, really appreciate, Eric, you being here and having this conversation with me. It's
My pleasure.
It's enlightening, but it's just absolutely a joy. Of course, it's our field, so we do get a lot of life from that in business. I hope that during this time that you were able to pick something from this as well, to give you an encouragement. It doesn't matter where you start at 20 years old, 18 years old, 45 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old. It doesn't really matter. There's no real age time or that you need to worry about this, because you can start now. It's never too late to really diversify, to be successful in business, to start businesses. You can be 7 years old and start businesses. It's just, there's just no age limits to these. You can be 7 years old and actually pick up new investments and, let your money grow. don't, that's going to cause you to have that energy, that life, that motivation to keep going and to have something exciting going on, instead of being part of the majority that die at 6 months after retirement. I'm not going to retire, and I made that decision. I'm not going to retire because I love to work, and two,
well, after knowing that stat, I don't want to stop working either.
Yeah. So, anyway, thank you for joining me this evening. It was a pleasure to have you join us. It was a pleasure to have you here, Eric.
Thank you.
You all have a good evening. I would look forward to seeing you next week. I have another guest already prepared for next week. It'll be absolutely a great conversation, so I look forward to you joining us. So, good night. Slava Ukraina.